understand the undercurrents in a lot of OECD countries, a sort of so-called backlash against globalization. I think we're going to have to rethink a lot of the rules that regulate the global economy. And this afternoon's panel been asked to talk about trade, and in a way I think trade is the least of the concerns. And I think people are asking for a much more equitable global economy. And to my mind, that means a much stronger regime on tax, much stronger rules on competition, which can't be addressed nationally. These have to be international. And then the other area is digital trade. So at the moment, we've just seen talks launched a couple of weeks ago on e-commerce. And this is really all about where we're seeing the global economy and globalization, where so the one big cross-border flow that's intensifying is the data flows. And the big debate in the global trade arena is about how do we regulate these global trade flows. And there's quite a big fight going on between the United States, China and the European Union, because they've got very different ideas about what those global trade rules should look like in the digital space.
I think obviously right now two major questions are emerging from not just the analysis that we have been engaged with, but much more broadly. One is dealing with inequality, which is arising from technological development. There is huge concentration of the share that's accruing to capital as opposed to labor, just because of labor substitution processes. And there are real questions about both sustainability of the world economy. Robots don't eat, robots don't wear clothes, and if you distribute most of the income towards them, meaning the owners of all this capital, then you weaken the growth of aggregate demand in the world, and that could be a recipe for definitely collapse in the future. But apart from that, simply tensions from inequality need to be paid attention to.
So I think there's lots of issues in the ways in which agricultural technology gets designed and gets promoted in both developed and developing countries that require a lot of attention and a lot of further understanding. At present, in rich countries, you can get inputs targeted to locations as small as a 10-centimeter square. And this is really taking advantage of information that comes from harvesting of crops, information about the properties of soil, soil moisture, various other information that can be tracked and located at very highly localized scale. And that information in turn is used to fine-tune applications of fertilizer, agricultural chemicals, change plant spacing, and so on. In smallholder agriculture in developing countries, the same decision-making process is going on, but it's being managed by farmers who know their land intimately. So without relying on computers, without relying on GPS positioning systems, farmers themselves know that on one side of a hill, they need to farm differently than on another side of the hill. The effort to use computer-based systems and satellite-based systems to feed this information to farmers may not be the most useful technology. The farmers probably know their land in greater detail than the satellites and the computers and the AI systems do.
Well, what you may find surprising is that the thesis that Africa is prematurely deindustrializing may not be that strong after all. You know, if you look at employment shares of manufacturing, number of African countries are actually increasing those shares, not decreasing them. So, you know, that's certainly one thing we could probably discuss more, and that has a serious implication, because one of the reasons why you know, there is a discussion about Africa not being able to industrialize, or not even you know, we shouldn't even, you know, try, is that argument of premature deindustrialization.
That we see more and more a kind of Northian elite bargain constraining the space for development in many African countries. That despite the sort of technocratic solutions to growth drivers, which are well articulated by the World Bank and just about every academic going. No matter how much good policy lessons are advised, there's some mysterious reason why they're not implemented, and they're usually not implemented because governance and policy is decided by some elite bargain where it's not in the interests of elites to diversify the economy, or the elite bargain is so fragmented and violent that it's simply not within their remit. They couldn't choose even if they wanted to. So these kind of deadlocks, either through fragility or through bad equilibrium elite bargains, I think are going to become increasingly prominent in our efforts to eradicate poverty, because they're going to be the really difficult problems left.
I think the way I would think about it is that, and digging into that sort of 3 C's framework, is the countries in Africa could, for the time being, not worry so much about necessarily improving their capabilities to use the most frontier technologies, but rather combine what we call in the report competitiveness and connectedness to improve their position in the global economy. And these 2 C's of competitiveness and connectedness is, quite rightly as you asked, actually more of the same. It's not radically different policies, but really focusing on doing the simple things better and more quickly. I think that's so if the window is closing, even if it's closing not super rapidly, but if this window is closing for African countries to be able to compete globally while using some of the older technologies, then I think urgency on the old policies is something that's critical. So whether it's just simple things like you said, rule of law, or doing business, which sort of affects competitiveness, or simple trade policies in terms of tariffs, non-tariff barriers, logistics. So these policies that you've probably been hearing about for years, but if there is more urgency put on a combination of these, then perhaps for some time African countries could compete without looking at these new technologies.